Morning. I want to call the recessed meeting back into order here June 1st, 2022 to go over our budget work session. Before we get started, I do want to mention the passing of former Commissioner Harold Bass. Harold Bass served the county from, I believe, 2004 to 2012. Was elected to 2 terms as county commissioner, and certainly thoughts and prayers go out to his family. I believe his service was yesterday, so just want to mention that. In the first order of business this morning is approval of today's agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Richardson, second by Commissioner Powell. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Then we'll hand it over to Lance Metzler and his staff for the budget overview.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, Board of Commissioners. I'm going to go through all of this. I can go as fast or as slow as you need me to. If I go too fast, you want me to slow down. If there's any questions during the whole process, please feel free to stop. But I do want to start off with the budget message, which is basically a summary of this whole budget. I'll start with on page 1, just to point out 2 things. The total recommended budget is $156,595,050, with the general fund constituting $108,458,658. When we first started the budget process, we had a deficit of $32 million, which is equal to 39.6 cents of the tax rate. So we were able to reduce that, realize there were a lot of needs out there, but with the funding that we had in place, we want to make sure that we covered all those expenses with revenues that we project, conservative revenues. On page 2, I covered this in the budget presentation. But are there any questions regarding the ad valorem tax or the sales tax? Again, we project the sales tax to go up 20.1% growth between last year and this year. But again, that is conservative, and talking with my counterparts around the state, we don't see the sales tax declining anytime in the near future. But any question on the ad valorem or sales tax on page 2?
The sales tax figures that you used matched the last one that we received as general notice for the entire state. The association
Yes,
published something.
associations information.
Thank you.
Okay, on page 3, the last sentence under sales tax, this appears to be a big increase budget to budget, but we're only going up slightly compared to what we've actually expect to actually collect. The register of deeds, this is a very conservative number. If development continues at its current level, we will exceed it significantly. I think this past year we did exceed it significantly too. But we've been in contact with Ben, and he keeps us straight with those numbers. On page 3 again, building inspections. This will help to provide funding for the recommended deputy chief building inspector. If you all approve that. Yes, sir.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Before we get to the EMS fees, I was kind of concerned about the increase because citizens constantly call me about how much it costs for EMS transport. Are you looking at any kind of reduction in that fee, or you want it to stay the same?
No, I think this is increasing is because it's matching up the Medicare allowable funds. So we match up the Medicare, and that's how we match that up. So if anybody is on Medicare, they'll be the feds will reimburse that to the third party.
Right. And can you explain the policy for the county transport to which hospital?
Currently,
That's
right.
where I don't know if the commissioners get a lot of phone calls about that too, but they call me complaining that they wanted to go to Conroe, but we took them to EM.
Currently, we triage. I mean, if it's anything, when I say minor, I don't mean to say that loosely, but if we have things that are minor, we send them to the closest hospital, because we have to keep our ambulances in the county because we just don't have manpower to house all the vehicles. So we triage it. If it's anything life-threatening, we do take them to Moses Cone to another facility, but if it's not, we keep them local.
Exactly. That's all. I just need the public to hear that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Page 4, up top, hold harmless. This is a relatively new revenue stream, but we should see a continuation of this revenue as sales tax continues to be strong. Although we do need to keep an eye on this, with the state and the Medicaid transformation, there has been talk about that. But anyway, as we see it now, even though they do that, we do think it's still gonna be strong based on the sale, and this is totally based on the sales tax. Transfer from capital reserves, this is to help cover the large capital projects discussed later in the message you'll hear. General fund was discussed in the budget presentation. Any questions on this? We will try to locate in this, we've got funds for the rescue squad radios. We will try our best to find grant funding for that.
Got it. On page 4, the Kate B. Reynolds Charitable Trust. Is that a continuation or is that something new? It says funds not previously spent.
These are for the integrated health program, but this is the last year we'll receive these funds. So we need to figure out if we're going to continue that program in the future or not.
I think it depends on which strings are attached.
Yeah, this is the integrated health program that they've had for, I think, 4 years or 5 years.
But they typically put all kinds of extra stuff unrelated to what the grant is for.
Right. This runs out this year, so if y'all reapply, then it'll have to come before you guys.
Okay.
You want to expand on that?
Just, I think the last time we received it was like 2 years ago. They gave us more money than we spent. So instead of asking us to give it back, they just said keep it and then apply it to future years. So this is the last year this was covered.
Landfill tipping fees, the dollar increase in the tipping fees was recommended from a study that our consultant Ray Huffman provided. It's critical to use adequate resources in this fund. We may need to increase this tipping fee higher depending on the results of the RFP. So we have RFP proposals to review today after, I think it's at 2 o'clock.
They're due back today at 2 o'clock, we review them tomorrow.
I'm sorry, we'll review them tomorrow, they're due back today. So we'll review those tomorrow and we may need to come back with a recommendation for higher than this if we need to. Because I think Ray said at the time we needed $5. Is that correct, $5?
Yeah.
And then we've been doing $1, but it may need to go up $2.
Right.
So we'll have more information once we find out from the RFPs. On page 5, the overall personnel changes would increase the county's FTE by 0.225, and that sounds weird, but we've got part-timers, 0.75s, 0.5s. The deputy chief building inspector primarily recommended to provide additional experience capacity in this department. Will also function as a career ladder for inspectors in that department. In foster care, we currently have 3 foster care employees to accommodate 168 children, which is way too low. We've added 3 positions in here for foster care, and they are 50% funded by the feds.
What about the adult care?
That wasn't,
I mean, because I know their caseloads are not mandated as far as which ratios are, but they're typically carrying a large load.
I could be
It
wrong.
increases.
I could be wrong. I think we have the positions available. We just don't have people in those seats to fill those.
Okay.
I don't think that they asked for.
Well, they asked for 2 positions in adult services. As part of meeting with them during budget talks, they made clear that the 3 in foster care were their priority. And so they just weren't recommended for money in because the other one was their priority.
But you're right, it's all over the board.
Hey, Lance,
Yep.
how many foster kids you say we got in county?
168.
And we only have 3 workers.
Three position seats in the people in the seats.
And you're increasing that?
Yeah. On page 6, the dental clinic administrative assistant. So this position in the past is part-time, but we've never been able to have anybody really fill this position. We're recommending they go from part-time to full-time for a variety of different reasons. One, for stability, so that you don't have a dental hygienist sitting as a receptionist. And number 2 is that the dentist is going to increase the services we're providing, which is good, because we were able to get those refunds back to go towards the services. But anyway, this would be a good, position to have as full-time. We have several reclassifications in here, starting from the 911 database coordinator all the way down to the practical nurse that we're asking for reclasses on and positions moved, recommended effective July 1. Are there any questions about those positions? And the total of 3.475 FTE recommended to be eliminated or frozen at the very bottom. And these were based on our discussions with the different departments. On page 7 to 8, there were 13, as we mentioned earlier, there were 13 positions that I did not recommend based on the statistics that we evaluated and discussions that we had with the departments. Yes, sir.
I saw where here, Sheriff recommended four new patrols. I just wanted to know the logic of thinking of eliminating that.
Based on the, Paul collaborated, because he did the study on this, based on the information that we received from the State Bureau of Investigations as countywide, they looked at, we compared ours to countywide comparisons, and we were within line with all the other counties that compared to. Might want to elaborate.
Yeah, so we got data from the State Bureau of Investigation for, I think it was 2020 or 2021, and compared the calls per 1,000 service population,
Right.
as well as the calls per square mile of the size of the county, just to make sure that we were capturing both, and we were in line. I think we were slightly higher for a number of sworn deputies per 1,000 service population than the average. I think the average was 1.5 or 1.6 or something like that.
I think the call volumes decreased.
And I think the call volume has gone down slightly as well, so because of that, we didn't recommend it.
Thank you, that's what I did.
Well, I've reviewed those figures, excuse me, Tara. You might just share with the public how we compare with those counties that we are normally matched up against, because that's kind of the measure that I'm using. How do we compare to other counties of a similar size and population? In
Well,
regard
that's kind of what I was just saying, those figures, we were comparing ourselves to ones, to other counties that we typically benchmark ourselves against because of their size, their tax base, those types of things. We have about 10 to 15 counties that we think we're pretty similar to.
We've got those stats if you want those.
No, I was just concerned, the reason I brought it up, Lance, was, we've been asking for patrol deputies for 12 years, and we haven't had them any. There's been growth going on 220 side.
That may dictate at some point in time with the growth over there, that may dictate us having an increase because of the number of people per 1,000, number of deputies per 1,000 may increase. But that's like with all the other things, with the fire, with the EMS, you don't want to be, put stations out there when you don't need them until you start seeing the growth. And I do have conversations with some of these other counties that are growing, Johnston County, Chatham County, and there's a county in South Carolina that's seeing tremendous growth, that I'll be talking with them about how they're handling.
I'm hoping you're looking towards that. I don't know how much phone calls y'all got from concerned parents on more SRO officers, and if you move SRO officers, then you have to have more patrol. I hope the county or you and your staff are looking down the road, talking with the schools about protecting our kids and citizens too.
Yeah, that's something, it's a discussion we need to have. I mean, security is an important part, especially with cameras and stuff like that today.
I know we've done a lot over the years. I think the 1-point entry and stuff like that's great, but we don't want the same thing happen here.
All right, page 7 and 8, again, I talked about the positions, the employee pay, discussed as part of the presentation, the recommendation from staff is a 2% cost of living increase, a performance raise up to 4%, but the average will be 3%, and to have 2.8 million dedicated for salary findings that the PTRC should have to us either late June or July. And again, I can't tell you if that 2.8 will be effective to fill that role or not, but that's just a number that I'd put out there.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Powell. Lance, on the pay, and we got 2% cost of living. What does it cost us per 1%? Every 1% on cost of living, what did that cost us?
$305,000.
So would it be unreasonable to look at doing a 4% cost of living, keep your 4% merit raise in there, and then, I believe if I understand correctly, that when we raise the classifications, if we do this by the 4% that we're doing on cost of living, that would be reflected in that, the pay study as well, because they'll take our current and base it on what they say we should be, and we would just do the difference in that. Is that correct?
That's certainly possible.
What do you say?
So I'd like to see us raise the cost of living increase from the 2% to 4%, which would be a total of $600,000. But then that's also reflected in the study that we're doing. So if the study recommended going up 5% on a particular classification, we've already went up 4%, we would do a net 1.
Why wouldn't you do it in addition to what the study says?
I'd be glad.
The study takes into account cost of living increases.
Right.
They're looking at a snapshot from the past. They can't look at the day it's released.
Okay,
So
okay.
So, that would lessen the, so we got 2.8 million in the, classification pay plan, whatever you wanna call it. So that 4%, if you're already doing the 4% in July, and we, get this back in August, who knows when, that would reduce that 2.8.
It could go up a little bit, go down a little bit.
do you need us to vote on that?
No, just give me, it's part of the record.
So
Okay.
you're saying 4% cost of living, in
Yeah, he's got it. He's got
Yeah.
4% cost of living.
And then 4% merit?
Yeah, we'll keep the merit.
That's the average. Typically, the average is 3%, and so the way we look at it is, so in a year, that 3% merit increase equals a 1.5% overall for a year, because use Paul, for example, his evaluation not due till June, so he won't see anything until the following year. But Pat's might be in July, and she'll see for that whole
Well,
year.
here's what we're gonna do. We got a motion by Commissioner Powell for
Okay.
this. We got a second by Commissioner Richardson. All in favor, let me know.
He's asking a question.
It's,
Is 4% cost of living, 4% merit, or 3%?
the merit's
merit?
not changing.
What is the merit right now?
It's up to
highest is
4%.
Highest, it goes up to 4%.
Yeah.
Right.
Three
It's
or
not
five,
changed.
Okay, and then whatever the study or.
whatever the study comes back is.
The study's not changing.
Study's
The only
not
thing that's changing is the
Okay.
COLA.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. Okay. I'm good with that.
Okay, so we got a motion by Commissioner Powell, second by Commissioner Richardson. All in favor, let it be known by the sound of aye.
All right, just to reiterate, 4% COLA, up to 4% merit,
Well, yeah, the merit's not changing.
and the pay plan, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the pay plan.
We'll go ahead and send those updated salary projections to our consultants so they can take that into account, please.
Okay.
Right.
And I'll add about $600,000.
Yeah,
Well, that should be, make a lot of employees happy with that. That's real good.
I hope so.
and again, we try to be, as you guys know, we try to be conservative with our numbers, with our revenues, simply because you want to put money back in the bank at the end of the year. We've been very successful in doing that in the past years. Again, on page 7, regarding the turnover rate of 22%, which is extremely high, but even this may be low this upcoming year because of the retirements, because we're seeing a lot of people retire, and at the end of the fiscal year, 22% turnover rate may be low, if that makes any sense.
As far as that turnover rate, are you, offering any other kind of incentives to new hires for certain critical positions like foster care or?
Not currently, that's what this.
I know we did it for EMS, okay?
We're not.
I mean, is that something being looked at or not?
No, we're hoping that this pay plan that will compare us to the surrounding counties will bring us up to date, so we look more competitive when we're going out to advertise these positions.
Okay, thank you.
And if it needs to be, again, I was telling Don, Commissioner Powell, excuse me, that over these studies, we're gonna do this study. It's gonna come back in from PTRC. We're gonna go up like this. We'll start stealing people from other places. And then the PTRC is gonna do a study for Caswell County. And then our people, it's gonna, with these key positions, it's gonna keep doing like this. So we're talking about, we just did this study a year ago, and now we're losing our, that's correct, because the Guilford County just got through doing theirs, Davidson County just got through doing theirs. So
It's an endless cycle.
Unless comes a recession or a time, we're gonna keep seeing this issue. And it's not Rockingham County or the state, it's national.
So I got one question on the, we were talking earlier about the study. I know that we went back and asked them to re-include EMS in that again. Is that the only one? Or
That everybody that we did.
Everybody we did the first study is
Yes,
gonna be included?
detention officers,
Gotcha.
income maintenance workers, because income maintenance got 0 last time.
Right.
I'm sure that would change based on the study that I just got from Chris Elliott from Davidson County.
Are we changing any kind of parts of the benefit packages?
No, I think it's pretty much the same. All right, just another thing to point out, in employee pay, another reason for what we're recommending is 40% of our employees have less than 2 years' experience, and over half of our employees, 53%, have less than 5 years' experience in Rockingham County. That's pretty substantial. Is there any other questions? I guess we've covered COLA, merit, and compensation, so we should just move on. Page 9, the general fund significant capital, one of the major expenses. Next year you'll see it's kind of awkward, and we talked to Commissioner Hall about this, and Commissioner Powell may obviously understand this well. We got a Chevrolet Silverado in here, it's a 5500 4x4. Want to point this out, this is a much larger truck than we normally purchase, but it is to pull large maintenance trailers as we potentially will get we'll build a dental clinic mobile trailer too. So I just want to point that out there because that is unusual, but at the same time we want to keep in mind safety and using these smaller trucks can't handle the loads that we're carrying. So it may look like a large amount, I understand that totally, but it's a safety issue more than anything. And we'll discuss more of the capital under tab 3. On page 10, the thing, and again, you guys can stop me anywhere you want to, but I just want to point out with economic development, the intention is to move, we have a Dodge Journey there now. Want to move that to the airport for the clients who come in. Right now, I think we have a 96 Crown Victoria. The ceiling sagging down is really not great for clients and CEOs to be riding around in, so we want to put something down there and then modify what we and them are using for their site visits. Page 11 and 12. So up top, projects recommended to close and move balance to unrestricted. These were all projects funded by our large fund balance transfer to capital that occurred last fiscal year. And briefly, I want to go through at the bottom, the recommended CIP. The election auto marks, these are recommended by the state. These are for ADA compliance. They have this software firmware that's coming out that we have to be in compliance with. And so I don't think they voted on this yet or made a requirement of it, but we want to make sure we have it in there in case they did make a requirement on that.
Maybe go ahead and move forward with it.
We have 24,000 in there for laptops for the MDT program for the EMS. We've talked about storage. I think we've all talked about storage for the county. We don't have adequate storage. We got storage all over the place. We're recommending to convert the warehouse on Cherokee Camp Road, which is a very secured facility, to a storage facility for all departments. They would have each have their own access to their specific storage area, and would have to be stored in one area versus all these other areas. DSS renovations is a large number, I know, but you all know the problems that we've had at DSS, and we looked at doing the upstairs only, and then we have recommended that we do the whole entire upstairs and downstairs. It frankly looks in bad shape if you walk through there. And this is a high number. I think it's high. It might be low. I don't know. But anyway, that's the number we put in there. The TDAs is $1.5 million, and that's the conversion of the radios from what we have to the time division multiple access compliance. On the next page, page 12, is the rescue squad radios. And again, we're going to try to see if we can seek grant funding, but if we can't, we've got the money available to secure those radios for the rescue squads. Governmental center, The flooring, as you've seen out here, looks a lot better. We get a lot of traffic, so we estimated $308,000 to do the entire flooring for the governmental facility on this side over here. And then the last is tax software to replace the existing software we have, which is very antiquated. The landfill, again, the RFPs went out, so we're basically not recommending any large capital for the landfill until we get this information back from our RFP process. In education and schools, fundings remain the same in the public schools. We realize we really need to prioritize the capital project for the schools so we can run our financial scenarios with Davenport and Company. They have a good source of revenues and dedicated sales tax right now. We also need to work with the schools to be prepared for a future round of state grant funding for the school renovation capital needs.
Is that sales tax or lottery money?
Sales, the money I keep up with is sales tax.
Yeah.
The grant is part of the lottery money. If we apply for the state grant, that's coming through their lottery money.
That's the one that we looked at last year. We decided to,
Right.
yeah. And then the other one's the restricted, was it 40?
42 and 40, 42, yeah.
Anything else on that? Okay. And RCC operations stayed the same, and capital went up slightly, and that is the increase due because the debt service of the science lab that we lent them money for is declining, so it's like $2,000. Moving on to page 13, workforce development, debt closed on May the 5th. The quarter-cent sales tax is more than enough to cover the debt service and expecting operational costs. A little over $8 million being used for the debt service. And look at that chart. That chart's pretty impressive. So you see the debt service, you see the year 23-24, the anticipated operation of it, and then you see above that how much they're estimating to bring in sales tax. So you have about $1.2 million to go towards whatever needs they have. So the debt service is at 1.8, and the other money is money they can use towards other projects that they see. But there's that chart says a lot about what the capacity they'll have over there at the RCC.
They know this too, right?
Yeah.
Why are they asking for an increase from us?
That's why we slap them additional increases. Contingency, we increased that by $100,000 due to uncertainty of fuel prices. That could go down next year. I mean, we don't know. It could be $7 in 3 months, who knows? Other notable budget items, you may notice new ways we're budgeting in public health and DSS. This is to provide increased transparency and accountability. In the past, we've put public health all in one with the salaries and benefits in one area. We've broken those out so you can see where they're going, and we did the revenues in DSS so you can see where they're going. Any questions as far as the budget message? And again, I'm gonna be redundant when I go through this. If I am, just say, look, we're good, pass it along. Page tab 2 this is the budget briefing with your recommended budget by the department funds. This is a summary. You see the total of 156 million down there. 108 million is general fund, and 98.5 was what we had for last year for general fund. So you increased it by almost $10 million between last year and this year as far as general fund. On the next page, overview of revenues. The large contributors to the increase in the revenues is ad valorem, that's about $2 million. The sales tax, which includes the hold harmless, which I spoke about on the 16th, is 5.3 million. The total between public health and social services is around 9 million, and transfers from other funds is 875,000. Next page, page 17, the large contributor, as I mentioned to you guys, just talk to you individually. The biggest expenditures that we have are the capital cost and the employee increases. Tab 3, you can see the capital. I've already mentioned these briefly, but again, a new vehicle for economic development, 2 ambulances, which includes new stretcher lifts for each one. There's 1 new ambulance and 1 remount, and these stretcher lifts are, I mean, incredible. After we've seen these, we observed them doing that at a function one day. It was very important for them to have those. 7 vehicles for the sheriff's office, 1 animal control truck. We have several needs for HVAC across the county, different departments and facilities. And new technology to interface with the sheriff body cameras to ensure critical footage. Why I bring that out, it's not a huge amount, but it's pretty neat. The side-on, it's called the side-on device cameras, but they're pretty cool because when they pull out their weapons, it automatically starts taking when they pull those out. Tab 4
Big brother.
is just a position history, and I'll get the highlights. In general government, we took out the lead position, as she and/or he in the future is employed by the UNC, now, not us. The cost allocated, some of IT's time for the pay channel and PIO, I think Greg would ask why going up 38% PIO, and that's because we're using some of Derek's time and one of his analysts' time to go towards the pay channel, because we're having the channel, all 6 channels apply for pay channel money, and so we'll be working with them on their pay channels. Or their information is put
Put
on
some new content on there.
new content, that's it. Public safety moved 3 positions from the sheriff's department to the jail and added a deputy building inspector and human resources, as I mentioned before, 3 foster care, and we did do added an attorney this past year, which was reflected in here. We moved positions from integrated health to DSS. Tab 5 is recommended vehicle replacements, 24, 25, and I'll hit the highlights. Again, replace an animal control vehicle with high mileage, purchase a new vehicle for the deputy building inspector if you all approve that position, purchase a new vehicle for economic development, as I mentioned earlier, purchase the maintenance vehicle to pull heavy equipment, replace 2 high mileage ambulances, which I discussed, replace the truck and environmental health due to the age and condition, and purchase the road and vehicle patrols for the sheriff and replace a jail transport van and 4 vehicles in DSS. However, with the ones in DSS, we'll get 50% reimbursement from the feds. Tab 6 is the vision, mission, and the strategic focus areas. These are the guidelines you guys provided us during the annual budget planning retreat. We use these to prepare the budget and work through our operations. Page 7, we have not received any requests from the fire departments to modify their rates. They are all in compliance with providing their, either the 990 form or their audit report, and that took a lot of work to do, but they're all in compliance with that, as I believe there's some that might not have this year, but the state reviewing those like 6 months behind, so we gave a little forgiveness there, but they're all in compliance now. 8, the fee schedules. If you will look at the fee schedules, mostly in animal shelter, mostly are due to spade and neuter cost increases. The EMS transport increase, and that's tied again to what Craig was talking about, was the Medicare allowable. The landfill, we've got a $1 landfill tipping fee increase, and that may increase depending on what the RFP comes back. Tomorrow, or today, we'll review tomorrow. Public health, mainly new fees for the new services by the dentist, and again, I think she's doing an excellent job, and she'll be providing, at least offering these new services. Water and sewer increase, and the cost of operations, doing business, and youth services increase in family therapy to Sand Hill's reimbursable rate. Tab 9 is the budget calendar. Tab 10 is the budget ordinance. And I don't know if you all, it's the positions are tied to the budget ordinance, the pay plan is tied to it, and the yellow positions, those ones are changed, right, Chris? I just wanted to point that out because that's at the very back, page 40 through 44. What's the red? Just eliminate it. Okay. But the rest are either modified, reclassified, or staying the same. All right, 11 through 44 of these tabs are basically, we'll go through each department, and you guys say you want to discuss something in each department, and I'll point out things as we go through, some things you need to see. The governing body, There's really been no drastic changes here, anything you guys want to discuss here? Moving on to tab 12 is the county manager's budget. Is there anything that you want to go over for this? There's nothing really significant here. Just to point out, we do have a committee that is working on morale. We've developed that a couple months ago. It's been working out very great. It's got some great ideas. These are from people who are actually in the field and see stuff that's going on, talk to their counterparts. 13 on page 59, just want to point out, we will be receiving the city's revenues. So if you look at revenues, you see it is increased. We'll be receiving, how much was it, 8,100? It's 8,100 per municipality is going to go towards our pay channel. We've been signing off on those with the city, so hopefully we'll have something secured. They've all applied, all 6 have applied. So we'll find out, we'll be getting their funding. And a portion of funding.
I just got a question about the salary jump and benefits, 38%. What's that?
Yeah, that goes back to what I mentioned earlier. Part of Derek's salary is gonna come out of that, and I think Peter, I'm sorry,
Okay,
Peter.
that's
It's coming out because they're.
so really it's 3 people instead of 1.
Well, one person and a point something of one and a point
That's
something.
what I want to clarify. Thank you.
And then, page 14 is safety, risk management, human resources, is on page 64.
I got a question about that. What's the status with our physical quality assessments with safety with our employees?
I know that we have them when they come on board as far as their agility testing, with
Is that
our
just new
staff
hires?
that we have now. We don't have any control over what the sheriff's department is made.
What can we do to sit down and talk about that? Because I get a lot of complaints.
We can certainly approach it.
I mean, it's more or less of
the
workers' comp
sheriff.
issues and, yeah, well, that and other areas too. Now,
I'd encourage you to reach out to Sheriff Page.
yeah, I just want to start that conversation because it saves taxpayers money for workers' comp issues. Certain areas that are critical for physical activity, they need to be in check.
I agree.
I'm not saying all of them, just ones that are in
I
the
think
positions, you know? Okay. I just want to make sure we get that conversation started.
Anything else? All right, page 15, and I'm going through, finance really had nothing that was significant. 16 is tax. Nothing, again, stop me if you want to talk about anything. It's tax, nothing significant.
Just a quick question, how's the rebound?
Come on, fine, great. I send you guys periodically what Mark sends me as far as update. We're rocking and rolling.
Are we on schedule? Okay.
I do have, back on finance, there was a large increase in operations, the operating expense. What was the huge difference there?
Oh, yeah, it is.
What do you think?
So we've decided to change the way we're booking bank fees. We've been netting bank fees out of investment earnings, and we've decided to go ahead and recognize this as full expenses and let the investment earnings recognize as full revenues.
Okay.
So the revenues is offsetting, the revenue's increasing to offset that increase.
Okay.
All right, on page 83 is legal. I didn't see anything in there that's really significant legal. Tab 18 on page 91, turn to page 91, just pointing this out, is the precinct staff is up by $28,570, and the premium is up by $12,000, and this is due to the general election in November.
How does this compare to actually the last election as far as, I guess it'd been 6 years ago, may have been longer than that. Well, but I don't know if you had a Senate race on the ballot then. I don't remember. So, I mean, they're all a little bit different. And I know when I went to vote, there was, very few people voted in the primary. I think turnout will be higher this time. But there was some waste there. You couldn't use a pen more than once. I mean, it's minor expenses. It was just kind of silly.
I'll check, I don't know the
Okay.
answer, but I'll find out.
Okay.
Let you guys know.
All right.
Precincts. Okay, and in there also is the $85,000 for the auto mark 88 compliant machine that may be mandated by the state. Tab 19, the only thing to point out here is the increase in revenues for the register of deeds we pointed out. And that's due to the growth that we've seen.
Was growth and the services that he had the wherewithal to add.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. Tab 20, page 113, 109, I'm sorry. 109, again, I want to point out things that may have increased, you guys might have questions about. Service and maintenance increased by $313,000 from last year, and that's due to increase in users, multi-year payments hitting this year, and normal increases with these agreements. So it's really not unusual for this to increase one year and be lesser in future years. Yeah, I'll hit that in a second.
I've got kind of, I know this is kind of a personal question, but service maintenance includes high back, air conditioning, everything for all of our buildings, right?
That will be in.
Well, you got Mr. Tate back there. Most high back system has gone to a much higher cost coolant. Has that had a significant impact on our budget?
Probably not that significant. You're correct. We're having to use a different coolant, especially as we modernize these pieces of equipment. And getting that to repair them is more expensive. But in the overall budget, it's not that large.
We do reclaim the old style in some places,
Yes, sir. Yeah.
recycle it.
We still have buildings that use the old coolant. But we're solely, as you all approved, adding new heating and air conditioning units. All of those will be taken out of operations if you change these units out.
Okay, I was just trying to get an idea. I mean, the detail's yours, but I was trying to get, I know in my personal business, that cost went up several 100%.
Even the old refrigerants are, they're trying to get everybody to switch over to the new. And so it is more expensive, but as part of the overall budget,
Thank you.
Two things I want Derek to touch base on. One, we've talked about this for years as the fleet management software, and the other is ERP. Can you talk about that? Just briefly, if you don't mind.
The first one was,
The fleet management software.
so fleet management software, this year, we reviewed several different companies that offer this type of service. And we've narrowed it down to 2 different vendors, but there's a major thing that needs to be addressed and make sure you guys are aware. For us to go to any type of fleet management software, it requires the person that is doing the maintenance on the vehicles to be part of their IT system. So it's really one parent company out there that offers this to all of these companies. So when we looked at our largest 10 vendors, 4 of those currently today are already on those systems. We would have to contact the others to see if they would be interested in signing up for this. But it would rule out some of the small mom and pop shops due to the fact that they don't have computer systems capable to be part of these systems. So for us to go to a fleet management, it seems to be very cost effective. It seems to be heading us in the right direction. It just does have an effect on the people providing the maintenance of the county.
So what we're trying to achieve out of this system is to be able to keep up with our costs, the labor costs, the parts costs, all those types of things.
And be predictive.
And be predictive, and there's is it called Auto Aware or something like that? There's a system that's used by insurance companies and lots of shops that the ones we've looked at, these systems piggyback on, so they give us that information automatically. The only issue, really the biggest issue is that whether or not the shop actually even uses a computer. If they use a computer already, linking into the system is easy.
They say
And
it's-
they work with them and all that, it's just if they're still doing paper invoices and don't wanna use a computer, that would mean we probably can't do business with them anymore, do limited business, because they won't be part of this program.
And there is a fee structure for the maintenance shops to do this, but it would be very similar to what they would be paying if someone paid with a credit card. And they would, depending on the plan they signed up, they could receive their money instantly, and then we reimburse the company once a month. So instead of them waiting for us 30 days to pay them, they would be receiving their money within a couple of days. Another key feature of the system is predictive of if they go in and they find that this is a problem with the car, they can give us the analysis, is it worth fixing or is it not worth fixing? Or you're seeing a trend with cars so we can get ahead of a problem. And then the ERP, it is been pulled out of ours budget. The reason is a trend that we're seeing in the industry on the IT world. We pulled that number out because if we put that number out there, every quote comes in at that number. These companies are being very wise and know how to look through our budgets and figure out what budget we have. So we're going through demos right now and getting what that information is, and then we have funds in our reserve funds that we would be able to use to do the ERP system. But right now it's not. We're trying to protect the taxpayer dollars, because if you put out there X amount of money, it's amazing that all the quotes come in at X amount. So that's why that has been removed from our line.
That'll be a major expense that you see us coming back, discussing with you later, we just wanna make sure you knew we let
It
you
is
out
still on the
intentionally.
plan, we're just out of the budget for a reason.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at new financial software and such. I'm looking at $750,000.
That's the one we're talking about, we're removing that from our line item budget. So it will not be part of our ultimate plan.
But we will be coming back.
You're using a different term as well.
We will be coming back to you guys because the one we have right now is antiquated. I think HR, finance, they're all, it's 10 years old.
We have demos set up today to look at it.
Okay, good.
All right, thank you. Next is the tab 21, engineering public buildings, and I asked Ronnie to briefly explain the capital.
Yeah,
If he could, and then let them expand if they have any questions.
it's a key word.
Yeah, right.
Just the capital.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything in the operation that stands out.
Okay, for public buildings,
Where are you at? Where are you at, Ron?
it's capitalized capital.
Page 4.
I've got it as 124.
Yep.
Okay. So the first item is animal shelter, and as you might remember, we redid part of the building floors about 2 years ago. And this project is to redo the remaining floors in the animal shelter, which is the lobby, the bathrooms, and the office. I think they have VCT tile on them now. It's removing that and putting the epoxy floor down that we have in the rest of the building. The next one is, of course, the Chevy Silverado that Lance touched on. Let's see, we've got over at Economic Development, we've got a request in there to replace 2 of the HVAC units that they have over there. And once these 2 are replaced, all of their units will be new, and there won't be any old ones at that facility. Next item is excavator mulcher head, and we use this quite often in cleaning up on all the properties. We typically have been renting this piece of equipment and spending quite a bit of money to rent it. This would be purchasing one that we could use on an existing tractor that we have to do the mulching. The next item is the governmental center 2 lug panels to go in here, since this building has been reconfigured so many times and we've added so much additional electrical to the building, we have a problem in here with breakers being tripped all the time. And so what we're proposing is to put lug panels in here to expand electrical capacity so we don't have breakers being tripped off. Reedsville EMS base heating and air replacement. That's an older unit to replace. Down in the capitalized capital CIP, you see the money set aside for the conversion of the central services warehouse over to storage.
Mr. Chair. Yes, sir. I hate to interrupt, but you brought up this question about power interruption. While Derek's here or folks in general, power interruption sometimes interrupts IT data dump. Do we have protection built in for all our departments regarding that?
We are about 90% on the IT side. It is in my upcoming budget to address the 3 remaining sites.
Thank you much.
I got a question, Mr. Chairman. Hey, Ronnie, with our EMS bases throughout the county, what are actually we using them for? Because should be really nobody there.
Well,
Just vehicle storage?
well, they're here during the day, I think, when you're not running calls.
They shouldn't be, because we're in the staging areas all through the county, because we're always short.
There is components of their job where they have to come back in and enter things into current systems that we don't have mobile in their units. So there is paperwork and stuff that they have to fill out for what they did here today and the calls that they were on to make sure it's billed correctly.
So they have to go back to the EMS bases, download whatever they need to do there. They can't do it out in the field?
Currently today, but that is one of those budget items that's in my budget for adding additional.
Okay, so you got a budget item to be able to do it out in the field. So what are you gonna do with the EMS bases? Just sit there?
They're still.
They use them, I mean, they.
Yeah, I think they're there, and it's like any other building, you don't want it to not be conditioned because it'll start.
Oh, I
falling
agree.
apart,
I'm
those types of
just wondering, do we need it?
Well, the units we put in for ones that are either at life expectancy.
I'm not talking about the unit, I'm talking about the whole building.
That's,
I mean, yeah, we'll have to, I mean, that's Kate's question. I mean, they use it to store it, especially during the winter time. They'll be over there. I know they heat the trucks up. They keep them stored there for the heating systems they have connected to
When
it.
they plug stuff in the air and all that.
Yeah, but the other part, you know, the kitchen area, I mean, they go there when they're
I mean, most of these bases were built when we were
24 hour.
24-hour shifts, and people, they were sleeping there too, and
Yeah,
they shouldn't even be there now. I mean,
some area, they stage theirs at some time. They stage different ones.
okay, y'all keep an eye on it.
Okay.
okay, the next item is, Lance touched on this a little bit too, the DSS upgrades. The biggest component of that is, the furnishings for the second floor. It's about half of that cost. And, I know Lance, I think he hit on a little bit about the cost going up. We still think this number is going to be okay. We have the furniture was bid out on state contract, so that price is still good, and I think the other costs will be okay, so. Let's see, governmental center flooring, Lance touched on that for changing out the carpet. And part of the reason that number is so high is the carpeting people are going to remove the furniture out of each office and then put the furniture back in. So there's quite a bit of labor involved with that project, especially if you look at all the offices we have here in the building. So that's part of why that number is high.
That's, what else you want to go up?
Well, I got judicial center.
Okay,
Did you want me to?
there's not a whole lot in judicials. I mean,
No, it's just replacing mini
I just
split.
wanted to have the main things that
Okay.
those are small.
Okay, all right, okay,
All right, thank you.
okay.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Tab 22 is non-departmental. Again, this, majority of this is the pay plan, the stuff that we talked about with the COLA, the pay plan and the classification, I mean, the merit increase. Anything else on tab 22? Paul?
No, we put all the revenues in this tab that are like property tax, sales tax, they don't really have a department that they go under, so they're in here.
Under EMS, tab 23, page 46, the cost of medical supplies has gone up. That's kind of increased quite a bit, $31,000. Page 147, again, I've said this several times, we've got 175 in there for, 175,000 for the rescue squads. Again, we'll try to secure grant funding if we can. If we can't, money's in there in case we can't find that. Any questions under tab 23? Well, actually, I'm sorry, tab 23's got a lot more. Fire marshals, 148, and there's really no significant issues other than, or items other than purchasing the mobile TDMA radios. Emergency management's on page 155, no significant other than capitalized for the radios. 911 communications, again, the radios, emergency services, no significant. And on page 176 is medical examiner, no significant there. Okay, tab 24. The increases that we've seen here on page 188 is a capital outlay and making increases in regards to both the Axiom Taser two-year plan and the Axiom body cameras. Again, these are paramount we have, but this is the 2-year plan that we're on. Also, under capitalized capital, we're filling the 2 remaining sediment traps at the firing range, so you shouldn't see this expense again. Replacing 7 vehicles, adding a storage building for the evidence lot. You've seen out there, we've got ATVs, mowers, all that stuff that just sit out in the rain, so we'll make sure they're covered, so when they get back to the property owner, if they're available to come back to the property owner, they're in decent condition. And what else? And forensic software. On page 189 is a big expense under capitalized capital, and that's under the capital improvement plan. That's replacing 98 portable radios and 98 portable and 110 mobile radios. On page 194, under jail, is miscellaneous contract services up by 27. This just matches the maintenance of effort funds that we're using for Dave Martin jail project over there. And animal control, the only thing big in there as I talked about is replacing vehicles. Under tab 25, page 202, juvenile detention increased by $85,000, and this is from a rate increase from $122 per day to $135 per day. And we've also seen an increase in juvenile detention. And that could go up or down, just depends on how many juveniles we have. Tab 26 is the animal shelter. I didn't have anything of any significance in the animal shelter.
What's the euthanization rate now?
What?
What's the euthanization rate now for animal shelter? Remember, we got it
Yeah,
down.
it's really good. I can get it. Is it? Yeah, hold on.
The last actual, so fiscal year 21, the last actual was 97% of the euthanizations were because they were diseased, poor quality of life, that kind of thing. So virtually, if they're adoptable animals, almost all of them get that count. They're adopted. We do get a lot of feral cats and things like that. You can't adopt them, not count that.
Tab 27. There's under building inspections. Again, I've added the deputy chief inspector position and the new vehicle for deputy chief inspector. And you got planning and zoning in here, code enforcement, central permitting, but there's really no significant increases. Planning and zoning is on page 216. Code enforcement is 222, and central permitting is 227. If you want to take the time to look at that, see anything, ask questions. If not, we'll move to.
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
So I believe we lost one building inspector, is that correct? Left.
Mm-hmm.
We're adding, we filled that spot and we're adding another one, is that what we're doing?
I don't think we filled that spot last I understood, unless it's been recent, and we're adding a deputy chief, so we would have 3 regular building inspectors, a deputy chief and a chief.
Okay, and then where are we at on, I know we had talked, some time ago about, I believe we're up and running on the email notification after the, inspections, is that correct, Derek? And then where are we at on being able to apply for permits or online?
Apply for permits online is probably 1 to 2 more weeks out. And we will roll out a limited on trade permits first. And then we will roll out more and more as they increase their business processes.
And do you have any idea of what the participation rate is on the computerized stuff, since we've implemented all that? Any idea where we're at on that? I don't know if there's a way for you to figure that out.
It's a very difficult way to figure that, but we have definitely seen an increase of people requesting their inspections online. And instead of calling in, they're looking on their own. And we know they're looking because some of the ones that are looking for the first time, they're calling into as a question, as a validation, did I see this right, or did I understand this right? But definitely the input, requesting inspections online has increased.
Thank you.
Anything else on tab 27? All right, 28 is the airport, and this is for, I know that the remaining group knows, this is for Commissioner Powell and Houston, that this is on page 231, 232, excuse me, this is the airports, the county funds, the airport $70,000 a year for operations, that's just our contribution towards operations. And we also provide $16,667 for a grant to match their Division 100 grant or whatever it's called now. I can't remember what it's called now. It's called that's it. Change. Tab 29. There's really nothing large under economic development other than what we talked about vehicle. But on page 243, you'll see. Let's go to that page. 243, you'll see an increase in economic development projects, and that's due to Ontex. And let's see, Ontex will be on page 242, excuse me. Ontex, Nestle, and Flamingo. So that will be our tax incentives for those 3. And for the benefit on page 244, I guess the benefit of Don Houston, this is an annual contribution the county provides funding for maintenance at our regional industrial parks. So the county matches and the town city matches. So that's about $40,000 to go towards maintenance of the park. Tab 30 is cooperative extension. There's really nothing in here. They get partial state, partial county funds to operate. 31 is soil and water conservation. They don't really have anything big in here other than they did get a $500,000 grant to help start clearing out the rivers from some of these areas that have deposits that are around some of these old old train trestles that are still standing. They're able to get in there with a helicopter, pick it up, and of course, $500,000 not go very far to get these, but anyway, they got that grant this year. We asked for a lot more. Tab 32 is integrated health. Again, this is just removing an employee from this department and moving it to DSS. And this is the last year of the KP rental grant funds. So with integrative health, that's what community paramedics, we call it integrative health. Keep your thoughts on that because this is the last year we're having any grant funding to be 100% county funded next year. So you need to weigh your thoughts on that.
Only thing I ask is to find out how real community paramedics is working. Is it driving down EMS call volume to these certain houses? Or what? I mean, you know, we always get calls from certain citizens all the time, and that's why community EMS is there, but is it helping? That's what we need to know. Is it being beneficial?
Okay.
And I think talking with Melissa, once this KBR grant is done, they want to look at possibly transitioning these to help with opioid response as well.
Okay.
Possibly using some of that stuff with money. It's
being discussed. Tab 33, public health. The biggest change in this, again, is how we budget. Nothing really changes other than separating out the salaries and benefits so we can be more transparent and accountable. And also, the dentist is going to provide additional services for the clients. I don't, Paul, is there anything else you know on that one that needs to be brought up? Is there anything you guys want to know about public health? All right, 34. Tab 34 is mental health, and this is, again, some of these things I'm just, most of you guys know, but for Don and for Houston, I want to make sure that they know. Mental health, under tab 34, this is the county's contribution to Sand Hill Center, which is our LME, MCO, local management entity, managed care organization. Tab 35.
Chair? Yes, sir. In regards to mental health, with Sand Hills, we now have a facility that our law enforcement people can take clients to that is closer, and there's no need for the deputy or the police officer to stay there. Therefore, there's an economy that's now coming to our sheriff's department and to the municipalities as far as that's concerned.
Is that the one in Greensboro?
That's the one in Greensboro. Has there been any assessment as to how beneficially that is to our county economically? Because this would impact on the sheriff's department manning and work schedules and so forth.
I don't think it's so new, I don't think there's been any evaluation on it. I'm sure after some time we can evaluate and see what the benefits are.
Yeah, and sometime in the future, this is not a done deal. Sand Hills is considering, at our instigation, placing a similar facility within our county. So at that time, the economic impact should significantly increase, in my opinion.
Under tab 35, it's social services. Again, we're breaking the revenues out instead of being under one umbrella for transparency and accountability. We're recommending those 3 positions in foster care, and we're recommending 4 vehicles to replace. Those are all of those are 50% reimbursement. 36 is veteran services, and there's really nothing to go over under veteran services.
One thing I need to know is, how many clients do they actually take care of in a year?
Performance is not. I can get that to you guys.
No rush on that.
Veteran services, how many clients per year? Okay. 37, this is other human services. These are just our contributions towards Health Incorporated, redirections and Project Safe. 38 is youth services, and under youth services, I just want to mention that youth services is able to bill for services now, which they did not in the past. And I want to give previous Commissioner Reese Pirtle credit for working on that, and Kevin for working on that, for getting that done.
How many counties are involved in some of the things
That we're doing?
yes.
Probably not a whole lot. Not to the capacity that we're doing.
Right, because we're over contributing compared to some of the other counties.
Yes.
Are we trying to fix that in any way?
The way that we have fixed it is that I think they did not hire back as many, I'm gonna say therapists, positions, and that they're increasing what they can bill for. That's not, it's a work towards the right direction, but it's not there yet.
And how many kids are they actually servicing?
Offhand, I can find out for you. I can get you that.
It'd be interesting to know what that cost per kid is, and I
We
believe,
provide services that most counties don't provide. In our our county contribution is a lot more than most all counties across the state. And we'll get that information.
I know,
The question is whether or not we're getting
Best bang for the buck.
right much of a return.
I know we got more employees than ours than other counties do.
Well, and youth
That's what he
services,
just said.
well, there are a lot of counties that don't have youth services. And Mr. Chair, your point, well taken. One of the things that's happened since we've moved to Sand Hills is youth services is now billing Medicaid. They've been authorized to bill Medicaid, and I don't know what that figure is, but that should significantly reduce the cost to the county tax rolls for those services providing eligible youth.
20-something thousand?
Yeah, we project around 20,000 next year, so that's 20,000 we're getting.
Okay, 39 is aging, disability, and transit services. And again, this is a benefit for the new guys. The county is a relatively small match that we match compared to what the state and federal government does. But as you probably all know, AETS, they provide a great service for Rockingham County. Page 40, or tab 40, excuse me. Biggest change in libraries that we have eliminated 2 permanent part-time positions and are using non-permanent heads.
It's more like alcohol consumption, so.
What's that?
Well, the ABC receipts were much higher, so.
Oh,
Alcohol consumption.
COVID did a heck of a job.
COVID kept
You're welcome. Thanks, Paul. Page tab 41 is our contribution to, you'll see, the museum, the MARC, DARPA, the PEG channel. The PEG channel is for community college, but we are receiving offsetting revenues for these.
They're paying us back.
The states we're getting their money from the state, we're flow through a conduit. Flows through us.
We're not giving RCC money. Yeah.
No, we get 28,000 from the state, we give it to RCC.
Okay, for RCC.
The Arts Council and the Fine
We're
Arts.
no longer paying them anything then. We did have something in our budget.
I don't think we were always a conduit for their education channel, but now we have our own, so, yeah.
42, public schools, again, we're recommending that we provide them the same operational capital that we did last year. And that's, and then RCC, as I mentioned earlier, we're recommending to fund operations that we did last year and increase their capital a small amount because the science labs are going down. I think it's like 2,500, something like that. Page 43, the transfers out. These funds are transferred from the general fund to other funds, capital projects. Just some items to point out: the debt service fund increase for the Workforce Development Center, the water fund. This is something to point out that's pretty neat: is that the water fund steadily has been decreasing our dependency on the general fund. I think on page, on page 376 under the water fund, you'll see in 1920, we were paying, transferring 761,000. This last year, we're transferring 210,000. This next year, we're anticipating transferring only 183,000. So we're steadily seeing a decrease in our contributions from the general fund.
We're almost there.
Almost there, and Chairman Berger asked a question about can the water fund reimburse the general fund for contributions that we've made in the past? Is that correct?
Yeah, basically create a promissory note.
Pat did some research on this yesterday.
Yeah, it's doable, we need to structure it and do a resolution when we need promissory note.
That's a good idea.
A resolution and structure it so that we don't get the enterprise fund back in trouble.
Yes.
But it's doable when we get to where enterprise fund has to be able to cover its operating debt and capital needs, and then we can start transferring, but we need a structure.
How far back can we go? Should we go ahead and create the structure now so that we can, or would that create too much debt as far as for LGC when they're reviewing it and put us on that watch list?
I think we can develop the structure. I think we can go back as far as as we've been contributing from the general fund for the debt. We just need to document, I can go ahead and be doing that, documented amount, and then structure a payback schedule that, you know, is ready to go into place as soon as enterprise fund has the excess revenues. And I'm sure we could write all that into the resolution, that this is the intent, is that once the enterprise fund is covering all its expenses that it's required to cover, then we will contribute back over to the general fund, and it could be as long as it needs to be to make that happen.
And I would just say, I would recommend as well, once we get into the black, that we start setting aside a portion towards the future maintenance costs of the lines that we have in the ground, because they don't last forever. They're gonna, I mean, they're relatively new, but they're very expensive to replace, so I think it's some mix of the two. And we have a water and sewer capital reserve fund for just that.
Would it be premature, either you or anybody else, to request that we construct this resolution so we can
I'll
meet those
get
various
back to work
aspects?
on that, I've made a note of that.
That sounds good.
Alright, sewer fund, just to point out, you see in there, the original in 21-22 was lower than this year. This has increased due to the lack of us, in the last year, we were pumping a lot of leachate out, because we had to clean one of the holding or retention ponds for repairs. And so we were using a lot. Now that's gonna be less because we've already repaired those. Plus there are less new customers coming on than water. So sewer's a little bit further behind than water is, but we expected that. Page 377, again, that's just increasing the contingency in case we have fuel issues that we don't foresee, which I'm afraid we will, but. Okay, now, this 44 on is, I'm gonna go through these. I don't know if you wanna, Chairman, I don't know if you wanna take a little break or if you wanna keep going.
Y'all wanna break now, or y'all wanna let him finish through it? I mean,
Hey, it's up to you guys.
I go to the bathroom, y'all keep.
Keep rocking, okay. 44 capital, and I'm gonna go through these relatively quickly unless you want me to stop. The general capital reserve fund, this fund is used to cover major capital purchases and has to be created by law to account for accumulation of these resources. Then you've got your landfill, page 382. We had in capital reserve fund landfill, just to point out on page 382, we did add $650,000 a year for future landfill sales. Hopefully we'll have some sort of determination based on the RFPs we received back. A big thing we need to keep our eye on is compaction rate, because that preserves the life expectancy and the airspace of our landfill. So better compaction rate we have, the better off we are, and the more time we have to add these funds in place. 385 is the capital reserve fund for the schools. This is used to cover major capital purchases for the schools, much like your general capital reserve fund for the schools instead. Page 388 through 407 are all tied to fire district revenues and expenditures. So look through those are basically each fire department broken down. 408 is the emergency telephone fund. These funds are generated through telephone surcharges and can only be used for 911 system itself. There's very limited usage. Basically, it's around the console itself and any equipment in that console. Page 411 is the Vera Holland Fund. These funds can only be used for upkeep and maintenance of the Vera Holland Center in Stoneville. And that's pretty benefit. That's right beside the Stoneville Library. The county owns it, and we rent it out to anybody who wants to have functions there. 417 is the Register of Deed funds. Again, these are fees that are collected through the Register of Deeds and are remitted to other state agencies by law. Page 420. These funds are collected by the county and remitted to the school system by law. So these are final forfeiture funds that are specific for schools. 423 These are state and federal funds that are received on behalf of individuals, where the Department of Social Services provides a payment management for these funds. 426, airport grant funds, and these are the county administers the state and federal funds for the airports, and this is where we keep up with that. 429, this is pretty self-explanatory, but this is where our debt obligation comes from for the county, for the schools, and for RCC. 430, there's 433. 433, I'm sorry, is a water fund, and I just was talking about how we've decreased on that, and we have money in the fund balance appropriated for that, but that's for our radio read meters, upgrade the Bethany water tank to use a portable generator, and our maintenance contract for the water tank. 441 is our sewer fund, and there's no significant changes in this sewer fund. Page 447 is the landfill fund. Well, again, we're holding on this till we find out from RFP. 461. 461 is the self-funding insurance fund. And this fund is used to pay the county's deductible on the general liability insurance coverage. Page 464, this is used to pay claims and administrative fees from workers' compensation liability pledge. Page 467 is the health insurance fund. And thank gosh, last year was an anomaly year. It was gone down by almost $2.3 million here. And last year was, we knew every so often with health insurance, when you're self-insured, you'll have that 1 year. We had that 1 year last year. It was terrible. Things are starting to look a lot better now. 471 is, this is the cafeteria FSA plan, which is a flexible spending account. This is for the employees. The employees fund this program through what they're paid. 474 is the TDA, Tourism Development Authority Fund. The TDA is funded by the occupancy tax. There's no major increases in expenditures except for in advertising and special projects. And gentlemen, that's 476 pages of budget.
$56 million.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are a couple of trees you got right there. And hopefully, this has probably been the most, I guess, the most open budget that we've had to provide, and hopefully it's as transparent as can be, because it's line item by line item. Hopefully you benefited from it, hopefully the public benefited from it. But I'm done with my part, and once it's got budget deliberations and then capital improvement plan discussions, I'm gonna have Paul discuss the capital improvement plan with you all, but I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chair.
Y'all have any questions, Lance, at this point, or Paul, or Pat?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir, Commissioner Oliver.
I will say, I know this is a lot of detail, a lot of lines, but for us, I think it eliminated a lot of questions. And obviously, I think it's helped us time-wise today as well, so thank you. Thank you, Paul, thank you, Pat.
I have just a comment that I stand in awe of, Paul, of what you've done. I give Lance due credit, but
He's behind it, I'm telling you.
And I'm glad you listened to Pat. So thank you very much.
All right. I agree with both of them. Appreciate everything that you put into this, and appreciate the openness on this and giving us all that detail. Gentlemen, do y'all want to take a 5-minute break and just get up, walk around for a second, and we can come back and all right, we'll stand at recess.
Recess.
Yeah, about 5 minutes. Okay. believe next, capital improvement plan.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Murray. So you should have in front of you the CIP for this next year, or for the next 5 years, really. We have 3 tabs, so we have the general capital reserve fund, capital projects, we have landfill, we have water and sewer. The major one's gonna be your general capital projects. I won't kind of belabor what we already talked about, so all of these fiscal year 2023 projects are in the recommended budget. This CIP is slightly different than what you may have seen in the past because it shows what the 5-year total is for what's on the CIP, so what's funded in these 5 years. Any prior year's funding that we had, what it's from before, what all years total is, and then what the total project cost is over to the right. So in this CIP, all these projects on here are fully funded. That's what the green means within that 5-year period. We also have our debt service because the money we use, the 5.5 cents that's dedicated to the CIP also is used for debt. So that's our existing debt service down there. Below that is our revenue sources for everything. Typically, it's just the 5.5 cents for that's dedicated to the CIP. The capital reserve fund, which is money that we previously saved for a project being transferred back in to complete that project, and a little bit of just fund balances in that fund. General fund balance, which is $175,000 for the rescue squad radios and a portion of the DSS renovation, $100,000 for DSS renovation. The quarter-cent sales tax for the RCC Workforce Development Center debt, and then some small revenues that are also going to pay for some of the debt. Any questions kind of on the cover? Kind of quickly go through all the projects. So each project has a sheet that's behind this cover that ties back to the cover. The 88 voting machines we've already talked about. We do have a county trailer storage facility out in 2025. That's just to help cover all of the trailers that maintenance has, as well as public health. They would buy that new mobile dental clinic trailer, we're trying to cover them so that they last long.
Is this including, so we're working on a grant now through Jay Brooks. Is this part of that, or is this be separate?
Two different things.
Okay.
This one's for the county trailers, what they're working on is for emergency management trailers. The DSS renovation, we've already talked about. You'll see several of these, so I'll hit them quickly, but updates to various buildings, so EMS, Eden EMS space, this is for a new roof, and for sealing and restriping the parking lot.
And these kind of go based on what Commissioner Hall had talked with, and Roddy set up with his plan as far as replacements.
And that's kind of I should say, with the CIP, the challenge is making the funding fit with the projects. And so these may move up a year if they need to be done faster, than they move out a year if they aren't needed, or, but the important thing is that we're financially planning for them.
Question.
And we're not, calling it 1 year, they need to absolutely be done.
Actually, when you get to the next page, I got it.
Okay. The emergency services building updates, this will be out until 2026, just the roof and painting facility.
Not that one. I was library.
Okay, the governmental center flooring, we talked about that one.
Was before that.
No, we need to get the library, page 86.
Yes.
For several years, we have been talking about finally getting that administrative part somewhere else. I mean, it makes no sense for it to be where it's at. Where are we?
So, we have a couple ideas for some space. We are getting ready to hire a new director over there, and staff understands that we will not be in that facility much longer. I think it's just prioritizing what space we want to move them in.
We've looked at several spaces. We looked at the 2 houses on Tyler Dotson. We're gonna convert one of those for foster care. When we have to keep children, so they don't have to stay at the sheriff's department. That one house, the one of the houses is child support right now. Once we convert the space over there, they can go over there. Those 2 aren't really conducive to be able to handle the book. So we're looking at other areas that are gonna be freeing up in the future.
We've talked to Dr. Shotwell about possibly being in a school. The school would actually work great. I don't think we ever got an answer as to if there was any schools that would work at.
I meet with them Friday, so I'll find out.
Maybe I'm confused.
But yeah, it's just trying to find the right
Yeah,
space.
maybe I'm confused. What are they using that Eden administration building for? Storage of books?
Administration, I mean, they've
I
got
mean, just
people
office,
there,
right?
that's office, and, yes.
There are some books and such
Yeah, there's-
downstairs and the bookmobile and a
Right.
few other things.
There's like 4 or 5 staff that's based out of there, the 2 admins, the people who do outreach, and then there's a collection of books that's used for the book building.
Yeah, and I think they rotate some books as well.
So we're trying to find a space that we don't have to
Some options.
renovate tremendously, really not one to spend a lot of money on.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's been there for a while, and it doesn't make sense for it to be where it is, and I mean, we dealt with somebody holding their breath last time we brought it up, but standing in the corner, so.
Now, well, I think what we wanna do is there's a potential for the new director, so, and we wanna make sure we get their input, because they'll be vital role, but I understand.
And I should just point out too, and this is for the actual library too, this isn't fixing anything on the admin building. This is a CIP project at least. You know?
A lot of space. I mean, it's 5 offices, that's all you need. They don't have space in the existing library?
Which roof is this for the library? Which roof?
It's the Eden Library, so not the admin building, the actual library, so.
Yeah, that was in bad shape, I mean, it's,
The emergency services building updates, again, just planning on replacing the roof of that building in 2026, so several years out. Painting the inside of the facility. Government center flooring, we've already talked about. So one of the accounts we used as a balancing line for the dedicated revenues was this Health and Human Services Interconnect. So we talked about that for, since I got here, 8 years at least. And this would be a facility that would go partially in the space between the 2 buildings right now, and then also go out front, so that DSS and public health essentially were lined up together, and it would be at one point, people come in the door because a lot of their clients are the same, you're directing. Also would give us some really needed space for spread out a few other departments.
Quick question, Kevin. Since we're paying to fund Mark, why can't we move administration to Mark?
You got a lease there, so I mean, they control what we've leased.
I mean, it's still our building.
that's
Still got a
certainly,
lease.
I mean, they got a lot.
certainly a possibility.
Yeah, but I mean, that's something that had to be worked out with.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something to look at.
Oh, yeah.
And this interconnect is based on, our discussion of consolidating health and human services. Basically, they'd come in one entrance and they would be at one kiosk and be sent this way or that way, and anyway, it goes back to our consolidation.
Sounds amazingly like what we talked about 12 years ago.
Yeah, where we saw up in Buncombe County,
But there's no real cost benefit of doing this, more just.
It's a
convenience. and-
service thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
No
there would
cost.
be an indirect, as a minimum, indirect cost saving if you process
Process fast.
faster.
And something I'm just, I guess, happy to see, this is a almost $4 million project, and because we have these funds in place, we're able to save and wouldn't have to debt finance anything. So the board doesn't have to do this project in particular, but you have that flexibility, which is something we didn't have a while back. Justice Center updates, again, small updates, recoating the existing roof, and resealing the parking lot. A lot of this is just maintenance stuff. Reedsville EMS base updates, I think that's a roof and HVAC unit, 2 HVAC units. Reedsville Library, updating the roof and new flooring. We talked about the storage, warehouse storage. We talked about the radio replacements already. Rescue squad radio replacements. EMS NDTs. Normally, a factor for being on CIP is over $50,000, but we treat that as the whole project. So since this one's only 24, but we had already funded 80, our total project's over 50,000. Sheriff 3D forensic scene reconstruction scanner, that would be in 2024. And again, saving to replace the tax software, we think that could be upwards of $1 million. What we have now works, But I think, as Derek has told me, the two people who run the company are of retirement age, and once they're able to retire, we don't know what will happen to that company, or whether they'll keep using that software.
Yeah, actually, all employees are over retirement age.
Is it Summit Software?
No, it's Cox Company. It's a very stable product, it works well, but when we look at risk as an organization, there's a huge risk that your entire support team for the software that runs your tax is over retirement age. So we've got to come up with one.
And so this isn't actually buying anything yet, it's just continuing to set aside $200,000, knowing that that's coming. So that's everything for the general capital CIP. Landfill. So, with both of these enterprise fund, CIPs, you kind of have to look at not just capital, but the whole fund, almost an entire fund plan, because they don't have dedicated revenues for capital. They have one source of revenue, so you kind of have to look at both. So, up top, you can see we're not recommending any capital this next year because we don't know what's gonna happen with this RFP. But we are recommending continuing to put aside money for the new cell, which I think could be needed as early as 2024, for constructing that new cell.
Ronnie, are all these, in the capital project improvement plan, are all these in compliance or in the general direction of our consultants' recommendations?
Yes.
You can see the operating expenses down there. We do count on closure, post-closure. This is a scary thing for every year. We have to set aside an amount of money based on the remaining life of the landfill. The remaining life of the landfill is determined by the compaction rate and the tonnage. So if the tonnage goes way up in a year, or if the compaction rate goes down in a year, we have to have more set aside. That directly eats into how much, that's essentially just an expense. So we have a plug out there of $600,000, but it may be too much. We've had years where it's been negative. We've had years where it's been $2 million. So it's very difficult to project. It's determined every year by a flyover, where they fly over to see what the compaction rate actually was, and then give Pat those numbers, I think, in July. Let's see.
They're actually doing the flyover, tomorrow. Good for that study.
Tipping fees, so you can see in these revenues, that is the tipping fees as they stand now. Right below that is tip fee revenue increase from raising fees. I want to show that separately. So every $1 generates about $105,000. So this CIP, in order to try to keep at least 1.5 million in the fund balance, which I think should be higher as fast as we can get it there, counts on having a $1 tip fee increase next year, a $2 tip fee increase the year after that, another $1 after that, and another $1 after that. So that would be over 4 years, another $4 or $5 that would go up. And that keeps, you'll see down here at the bottom, this unassigned available fund balance, it keeps that right around 1.5 million. All the other revenues are pretty straightforward. They don't change a whole lot. And then you can see the closure, post-closure at the bottom growing and growing as we have to add money to it.
I have a question on the landfill. When we do the brush and debris from the tornado free out there, that brush, what do we do with that?
We have a subcontractor that comes in with a tub grinder, and they grind it up, and then they haul it off.
So can we not use that as closure material?
You can, but you have to mix it with dirt. There's a specific ratio that you have to mix it to, like 50-50 or 60-40, determined by DEQ. And to do that, to me, just seems to take a lot of time. We're short-staffed. We're down 4 operators out there right now. So I think it should just be hard to do with the staff we have. The other thing that we're hoping to do with the privatization is to have that company come in and use PosiShell, which is a spray-on alternate daily cover, and uses like a ½ inch of a product that sprays over to make the daily cover, and you get away from using dirt because dirt just eats up air smoke. And so our goal is with the privatization is to have, that's part of the RFP, is for them to have to purchase posi shell equipment and put it in place as the daily code.
And so,
And we're also, in case you wonder, we're not permitted by DEQ to sell or store mulch on site. You have to have a separate permit for that.
Is there a way to contract with some of the cities that have, I guess, places to do the,
Mulch it up.
yes, some of our cities in the county, I mean, they've got,
I know Greensville got it.
We can certainly reach out to them and see if there's a need for it.
Well, you got that solid waste committee, maybe you can bring it up
Yeah.
in the next.
Solid waste committee, man.
Again,
and especially when we have these natural disasters and we're looking to give the citizens a break. I don't know if the cities be able to help out. Maybe it'd be cheaper than what we're doing, I don't know.
we can certainly ask them and see. Right now, the inert debris pile is not that large. It's been, several years ago, we had several storms come through. It was very large. You know, we're grinding, a couple million pounds of inert debris, but it's not that big right now, even with what happened with the last storm.
and just to point out, the budget in the current year approved for the county to purchase the materials and the equipment needed to do that posi shell, which is really, could have a big, major impact on some of these numbers. We haven't moved forward with buying that stuff yet because we want to find out how this privatization goes. We don't want to buy brand new equipment and then turn it over to a company and possibly lose money on that. So if we don't end up privatizing, the money is already there for the county to buy that equipment to move forward with that posi shell.
Mr. Chair, I've heard this conversation at least 10 times before. And I sure would like to have something definitive, Ronnie, about this. It's the right thing to do, not to turn that organic stuff into liabilities rather than something that benefits mulch, you name it. Because we always have a lot of that stuff, whether it's ground up pallets or debris from storms and so forth. But we've never been able to, certainly not make any money off of it and certainly not return it in a healthy way to the environment. So I think that all told should be part of the conversation with a potential privateer. And I would just like to see us quit wasting that stuff. And I know what you're talking about with regulations because I've been through it but there are a couple counties in the state that do turn that, New Hanover being one of them. I don't want to buy some of that expensive equipment, but I would just like it to be part of the general conversation for the landfill on how to turn organic matter into something positive, rather than creating yet another environmental problem.
I'd like to just tag on to that and say that I know there are counties using that for cover material. So absent us buying new equipment to do what you're talking about, it appears to me if we have that there, that it would be minimal task to mix that. I don't know, it may be a larger task than I think, but it looks like if we could use that, it would be cheaper to use that than it would be to go mine and move the dirt, it looks like to me.
Well, hopefully you won't have to worry about that. Again, the state requires like 6 inches of cover per day. Is that correct?
So posi shell is an inch.
Right.
So you're saving 5 inches per day, which will add a tremendous amount. So hopefully we won't have to worry about that anymore. The posi shell is kind of like, you have ice cream, you got the little chocolate stuff you put on top and it freezes. That's exactly what it's kind of like at the landfill. So hopefully you won't have to worry about that.
Okay.
Well, not kind of, what is it?
It's a posi shell.
It's
It's
powder.
like a cementitious material and, it's got some other things mixed in.
Cementitious.
Yes, sir.
Don't know what that means, but okay.
Does that mean ceramic?
No, it's got like a cement product in it. It's not,
Well, I could
It's
do the
not
word
purpose.
derivation. I'm trying to get a better grasp on what
It's
what it
organic,
is.
though, yeah.
no, it's
What's it
well,
made
yeah,
of?
It's some kind of organic, but it's a cementitious material that's sprayed iron.
It's
And it's
possible
just,
we're wrong.
it's almost like Lance was close, it's almost like a hard candy shell.
Did you say organic? Is it
Got some
organic? If
organic.
it's organic, it's not cementitious by definition.
It's like paper mache that you spray on with a hydroseeder. And
It is.
Yeah, I mean, you spray it on, it hardens on top,
Yeah,
and it's allowed for daily cover.
Yeah.
So you can put on less than an inch thick.
Does it degrade over time?
probably, I don't know how much, but.
It's approved by DEQ to
I'm
use.
sure the answer to that would be yes. Question is, how much time? Might it be in years?
Yes, if it's organic.
Yeah, but the thing with PosiShell is it saves you the state requirements are, if you use dirt for daily cover, it's 6 inches.
I got that.
So,
I got that. I'm just trying to find out.
As long as
What's going on out
DEQ
at the
approves it,
land?
we're good.
Yeah,
DEQ approves it, I'm sure it's.
Oh, it's, yeah.
Well, I'm suspicious of DEQ approves it. Thank you for your information, I understand.
Yeah, so kind of keeping going on this. Landfill projects, won't go through all of these, but these are in line with what the, what the consultant recommended, last year. And it's preparing for 2 new cells coming up as well as some new. Water and sewer. So when we were making the CIP, we didn't know, there's funding out there, but as far as we were aware, there's none that's been committed specifically for a project, new money for new projects. So right now, there's no recommended projects on the CIP. There is the debt service that's out there, the salary benefits, which we don't have staff anymore, but it is a portion of Ronnie and his admin and a few other people that spend time on, and central permitting spend time on water and sewer billing. Along with the water charges, sewer charges, and the transfer from the general fund at the bottom. What we did want to show here at the bottom is what you do have available for future projects. So
23.5.
you have right now, between assigned ARPA dollars, the water and sewer state appropriation that was in the state budget, and the 2 fund balances for each of these funds, you have about $23.5 million that could be used for future water and sewer projects. So
And those recommendations for what to utilize those funds will be forthcoming in the somewhat future.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I have a question, and it doesn't refer specifically to this budget as we talk, and maybe I'm inappropriately optimistic that a lot of people are watching this particular meeting of the Board of Commissioners. But there are many folks out there that are concerned about school construction. And of course, we're concerned about service to the public, school construction, and we're concerned about cost. And just as an overview, because this is a separate sort of number that we're going to have to be dealing with budgetarily, if maybe we could get Pat to talk to us a little bit about how we budget future school construction. Is that out of line, Mr. Chair?
Well, I mean, it's a completely different topic. I think you've got the lottery money, and you can do more than just new construction now with the lottery money. You can do repairs, you can do renovations, you can do expansions. You've got, I want to say it's 8 or 9 elementary schools that were at the last round of construction that were built for expansion. I think it'd be irresponsible to ignore what our predecessors put in place. And that's going to require the school system at least once, most likely twice at a minimum, to redistrict. If you do expansion, I mean, you've got some buildings that are busting at the seams, you've got some buildings that have capacity, you've got some aged buildings They're supposed to have a report back at the end of June, end of this month. I know in speaking with the folks with the city of Reidsville, they've asked a couple of times, who do we get in touch with? And I've told them the school board, because nobody's reached out to them as far as the growth within the city limits of Reidsville. So I don't know who that group that the school system contracted with to do this study. I don't know who they've talked to, don't know who they haven't talked to. So I don't know how accurate the data we're gonna get is gonna be. We'll just have to wait till we get it and go from there and see what's included and what's not. But certainly those elementary schools that were built in that last round of construction, with the way they were built, with the guts of the school being such that they can hold more than what they're holding now, and with the way they were built to be added on to, I mean, there's enough there to take care of at least one, from a capacity standpoint, elementary school, if not more than one. And I believe that what we ended up with as far as a request from the school system a couple of months ago, they completely ignored that. Completely ignored timeframes, completely ignored a number of things. Just because they were looking, a couple of them were looking more at Christmas list. And we can't look at Christmas list, we have to look at needs. So, I don't know what else.
We do have, Pat and I've talked about this several times, so we do have capacity. We've done a debt availability study with our financial advisors at Davenport Company. So we have that capacity in there. We just, or for whatever, expansions or whatever. We just need to have direction from the schools as far as where they want to go before we can enter the data in to tell them what they can do. You know, like you said, you know, these last 9 schools were built like kind of like a jail. You build the jail with the guts, the kitchens, all the other stuff, big enough to accommodate future pods to add to it. Same way with the schools, they were built with, like you said, the guts inside to build for additional growth in schools. We just need to get direction from the schools so we can put that information into this database to be able to tell them what they can and can't do.
And the way that lottery money works, it used to be that when you made that request that you could not make the request again for a couple of years. Now you can make the request annually for accessing those funds. You just lose some of the priority as far as their point system and awarding the money that you can tap into as far as that lottery money for construction. So once you expand a number of those schools that you have, that will help alleviate some of the space issues. Now, the space issues are not the only issues that they've got. I know at one point, the school board voted against doing new roofs because they wanted new buildings. And, you know, again, that's hard to fathom. But there's a number of things that can be done, and also, without a doubt, changing leadership has affected the speed at which things move. And we'll see what the new guy has in mind. I mean, nobody has a clue there, so you know, that's out there as well. Yes. Okay.
That's it. Just one other thing to point out, as part of the shared savings policy that's out there, we provide you all with the balances that every department has, so I've given that to you. As of right now, I think you'll see a lot of these balances coming down. Right now, there's $364,000 in shared savings, which is good. It's about where I would expect it to be. It's a lot less than it used to be. I think you'll start seeing these come down as we start having more employee retention ideas and things like that. We're really pushing departments to be creative on how they can use this money to make this a good place to be and hopefully retain employees. So we've had a few ideas in some of the departments already. That's really their great job. And some of these departments, like their income tax, always jumps out. It has 41,000. It saves in shared savings over a decade to buy a new car. So it's probably getting pretty close to needing to buy that new car about now. But that's the program works because he's saved this for quite a while. Just want to point that out.
Mr. Chair, I think staff's completed, unless you have any.
Is there anything else anybody has? Any questions of Lance, Paul, Pat? Anybody else?
See you next Monday night.
Okay. No other direction for them? I mean, I think we've made, I guess, really say one adjustment on there, but if not, then we have a motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Powell, second by Commissioner Travis. All in favor, let it be known by the sound of aye.
Susan, Charles.